right, good evening. I hereby call on May 15th, 2025, a meeting of the Town of Hanson Economic Development Committee to order at 5:30 p.m. I would like to announce for all those in attendance that this meeting is being recorded for distribution on Whitman Hanson Community Access. Playback times and other related information on this recording can be found at Whitman Hanson, WHCA.tv. And just by the by, we have a separate Hanson government channel because people have been trying to go to the general channel and you can't. There's a separate Hanson government channel, which you can still eventually get to from there, but I just thought I'd mention.
Yes.
Okay, members, grab the agenda. I think first up is approve the minutes from February 5th and February 19th, 2025 Economic Development Committee.
I'll make a motion to approve both February 5th and February 19th at the same time. I don't know how we're going to handle it.
Yeah, so I was just thinking without Chris here, we're probably going to have to, I mean, unless these guys feel comfortable approving it. You are able to approve minutes from a meeting you haven't been to, but you ought to listen to the recording at least to know that what you're approving is what was discussed. So can we...
I can take back my motion,
so you're gonna,
delay it till the next meeting whenever we choose our next meeting date.
That sounds sufficiently ambiguous.
Yeah, so I take back the motion to approve the minutes, and we will.
We'll table it.
We'll table that. Yeah.
Okay,
that
great.
Sounds great.
But I appreciate your willingness to jump in. Welcome to our new committee members, Scott Rothwell and Paul Sarah. I know Scott and Paul from the Hanson Business Network, but I would love it if they would just tell us a little bit about themselves and why they wanted to join the Economic Development Committee, and leave out the part of being heavily recruited by people.
Well, I'll start, I guess. I grew up in Hanson. I graduated 1987 from Whitman Hanson, and pretty much been a resident of Hanson ever since. Lived in Plymouth, was married, had 2 children. Went in the Navy, went to Johnson & Wales, and I've had my catering business for about 15 years. And we do pig roast barbecues, and we recently bought a food truck. And I guess what got me here, I do a lot of events at Camp Kiwanee, and I love the team there, and I love Kiwanee, and I like to be a part of helping Kiwanee grow and get more business and create more revenue for the town of Hanson.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Sarah, and I didn't grow up in Hanson, but my wife grew up in Hanson. I live in Hanson. I'm retired from the Sheriff's Department. We've been involved in the Hanson Business Network, and I just really like to get involved in seeing, especially some of the property in the town, be utilized to bring in more revenue to the town.
You're welcome.
That's perfect. Although it does seem bizarre that we're doing a recap of the business summit here in May, we are, because we have not met since then, because we had a few other things going on. The feedback that I got was really positive. I would be remiss if I did not absolutely, thank with a heart full of gratitude both Tony and Kim for being the laboring oars on this and attending to the many details that we probably, some of which we aren't even probably aware of. But we appreciate it. I think we got really, like I said, positive feedback. There's always, what could we do better? Because I always like to do a little post-mortem. But as far as what went well, I think the energy and the diversity of the businesses that were there. I saw a ton of networking of people that never had crossed paths with one another, getting to know each other, which was, of course, one of the primary focuses was just to kind of break down some of those barriers. I thought it was amazing that we were able to have support from the local, state, and federal level there, because we had, we had Rep. Sweezy, we had South Shore Chamber of Commerce, we had Jeff Deal, and although he's no longer technically in politics, he's very much still on the scene, and he is a business owner in Hanson. He and his wife, Kat Jo. So that was amazing. And then we had, because the Small Business Administration was there, they had put something on their website, and then I didn't even know this was the thing, but it was, the Veterans Chamber of Commerce woman who happened to be looking at the Small Business Administration website. I don't even know where she came from, but it was quite a distance. I was overly impressed. I was like, you came from where for our little first summit? I'm like, oh God.
It's like gonna western part of the state.
Yeah. That was kind of funny because she was like, well, do you know any veteran-owned businesses? I said, well, funny you should say that. I only know of one, and he happens to be sitting right there. And it was Scott, because Scott had just told us at about 2 Hanson Business Network meetings back that his business had just been approved to be considered a veteran-owned business, which, I mean, obviously it was always a veterans-owned, but it's a designation, and that opens up all kinds of opportunities for government contracts and other contracts where they're looking for somebody that's a veteran-owned business. So I think you were able to connect with her.
She was very helpful.
Yeah.
She had an enormous amount of information in the government process to bid on federal jobs for catering and food service. It's like a full-time job, filling out paperwork and doing all that. So anyway, she put me in touch with a lot of useful people, and she's an author of like 3 or 4 books. She gave me a book. She gave me all kinds of stuff. So it was great.
Well, you won the lottery that night.
Yeah.
And I felt good because I thought, oh God, because I looked around and I didn't see you, and I thought, oh my God, if he's left her one opportunity to connect with anybody.
And she came the whole day.
Yeah,
she stayed in the hotel in Rockland, and it was great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And she seemed happy to be there too. So.
Yeah, she was very enthusiastic about the process, and she gave me a business card. She said, if you ever have anybody else that's a veteran-owned business, like I didn't even know that entity existed. So that was quite something. And then we were very blessed to have Ernie Foster from Webster Printing come, and then we had Bill McDonough from Scribende, and the woman from the Small Business Administration, Ken Sweezy spoke. So it was a good little, cross-section. I would say if I were to do it differently, there's a couple of things that I would do. One would be probably 2 speakers, no more than 2. And then I would do something a little bit more of a organized groups, like, breakout brainstorming sessions or something on like, and tell people in advance that we were going to have these types of things. Like, what are the impediments to having a business, in Hanson? Breakout, like tell us, what is it, the signage, the, zoning, I'm making this up. But,
I was thinking maybe similar to that. If you have a panel up front, you have the 2 speakers, and then you have, let's say, employees from the town hall, and just sort of maybe get a question and answer with with the crowd.
That would be great.
So instead of maybe just breaking out into small groups, maybe we can interact all as one group and
we could have 1 or 2 different panels. Yeah, that's a great idea. And thank you for mentioning that, employees from town hall, because I was really grateful. Beyond their 9 to 5, that they were willing to be there and be accessible. And I did see people asking a lot of questions and interacting. So I was very grateful for that. And you're right, maybe having like that panel discussion would it make it easier for people to identify, oh, these guys work with the town. If I have a question I don't feel comfortable asking right now, I could circle back afterwards because now I know who they are.
And they could ask questions about their business or regulations related to the town, but then also I think maybe as part of that discussion to say, okay, you're the business community, we're here, tell us what you give us feedback.
Yes.
And maybe break it up into that type of session, like speakers, questions, interaction of them, the business community, telling the town, hey, we need more, or we'd like to see,
And it was great. Like I really, like that day, like I do before every event, I said to my husband, it could be us.
Yeah.
It might just be us. I always like to set the bar low so I don't get all.
We all felt that way.
And he was like, okay, you're being crazy. And then I thought, well, probably the guys from the Hanson Business work, at least some of them would come. And that was great. And that did happen. We had quite a few people from the Hanson Business Network, and I was grateful for that. But when I saw Bob Wilcox walk in the door, I said, we're on to something. So Bob has had a business in town for years, probably 50 years or more. He's the salt of the earth. He owns Wilcox Aluminum, which I constantly tell him he has to rebrand because people think he just does aluminum siding. That's a different situation. And so he is one of these guys that, he's got his sons. It's now a second generation business. You hire him to do work, he sends you a thank you note, handwritten thank you note, just for paying your bill. He gives back to the community. So I was like, oh my God, this is like the Holy Grail when I saw Bob Wilcox walk in.
We were hoping that, I'm like, if I can get 25 people, I'll be really happy.
Yes.
If I get 50, I'll be over the moon. We had 27.
Yeah.
So I'm good. For a first one, that was a good start.
It was very good. And it's dicey for all, I find just in general, for events, people just, I don't know, the art of RSVPing apparently is not, it's just, I don't know. It's not
we may have to change that.
Right now, it's not in fashion, I don't know. But it's like people just think you're intuitively going to know, well, I didn't say it wasn't going to go, so they show up. Or people RSVP and say they're going to go, and then they just don't show, but they never tell you. Yeah. So I don't know. I do tend to take things a lot more seriously than other people do, so about stuff like that. So we do need, I think maybe, I don't know what we do on that.
Yeah, we did an RSVP not required, but basically like helpful. I think maybe we kind of do like, please RSVP so we can have a head count type.
Yeah. And what did people think about having it at that time of the year? Did that work? Should it have been a little bit later? Like what?
February was, it's kind of in the middle.
In my opinion, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. And it seemed like, well, I guess you're saying 27, that was just participants, and then there was a staff of people.
Yeah.
It looked, Wildpark looked like 40 people in there. Easy.
Yeah, I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't like, oh God, I hope the camera doesn't pan out.
We had quite a stack of business cards because we had a bucket throw the business card, and we have quite a stack of business cards we received.
Yeah, it was great.
And we sent thank yous to every single person.
There was a photographer I had never met who was there. Somebody from Spiro's came, which I was thrilled because, the Hanson Business Network had talked about, Spiro's and what we could do.
Heidi's Hollow.
Yeah.
Heidi's Hollow. Yeah, I know.
I got a chance to meet with her because of that meeting. We set up and try to do some partnering.
I'm thrilled. This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You're my poster child for this work. Okay, so that's great. What did you think?
I think that time of year is good because it's not, you don't have, the only thing you have to really worry about is the weather.
Yeah.
So, and I think that works because, we do Hanson kind of tie it in that part of the year. You know what I mean? So I don't think having it close to Hanson Days would be more Hanson Days and vice versa. Hanson Days are good for a little, another.
I also like the fact that if there were businesses who hadn't been in Camp Kiwanee, that maybe they would visit there and be like, hey, I could have an event at Camp Kiwanee. I also failed to mention that the new folks who bought Dr. Auburn's business. The dentist and her husband were there, and I'm thrilled because they're deciding to not just stay in Hanson, but they're building a new building there, and they're going to grow the business. So this is all like amazing. So yeah, I agree, Paul, about the time of the year. Did we have a snow date? I don't even remember if we had scheduled one, but we ought to.
We did.
I think we did, yeah.
I thought the food was fine, given the sketchiness of people RSVPing, and we really just didn't know who was going to be there or whatever. It was like, and we had a budget, we're not going to be serving caviar. So,
I'd like to, business, it was Meadowbrook, a different business next one.
Yes.
Just to sort of showcase.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
And give everyone an opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay. So let's do it again if the lobotomy takes, effect. But yeah, so that would be good. And maybe we can even reach out and try to preemptively book off at Camp Kawani just so, and originally I think we had it scheduled for like January,
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
which was overly ambitious because everybody was just getting through the holidays and we really didn't have our act together. So February seemed to be a good sweet spot. And we probably want to try to stay away from February vacation week, but other than that, I would say whatever. And also Valentine's, because a few people do still celebrate that.
And we'll probably be using Kim's skills again. I told her that.
Well, she did when and I do want to mention that Kim is staying with the town hall, but she is getting a full-time position in the assessor's office, and we are thrilled for you, and I'm thrilled for the town that you're staying with us.
Thank you.
Because it's always great to have somebody talented and cheerful, and to have them stay with us is amazing. And we will miss you, but don't think that I missed the last line of your reply to me saying, and I will help you next year with the
I
summit,
meant
because
it.
I was like, note to the file. She knows where the bodies are buried. She's going to help us again next year. Thank you, and the best wishes
Thank you.
to you. That's a lovely group. Denise is amazing, and the new gentleman whose name is it Scott? Keith, I don't know why I was. He's quite lovely, and and you're stepping into Anne Merlin's shoes, who's been there for 25 years, but make it your own. And I think Denise is making it her own because she's just recently replaced Lee. So
Right.
I think you're right doing that.
Thank you.
Anything else we want to say about the Business Summit? Did you have thoughts, Mr. Hall?
No, I was unfortunately unable to make it.
That's okay,
Sick
yeah.
for that. But I mean, if it steamrolls, we might even want to explore second one in the year. I mean, a year is a long time to wait for the next one. I kind of
It is
feel
a
like,
long time,
And
yes.
I know we have a couple events during the year that we always look forward to, such as Hanson Day, and as the Economic Development Committee grows, and we've learned a lot over the last year. I feel like
Yes.
we might be adding more events throughout the year. We did. I don't want to get off topic.
Oh, no,
But we did. You can talk about quite a few things adding last year, food truck rodeo, or
Yes.
farmers market, or maybe even a temporary pop-up business kind of we kind of see it in Weymouth, for instance. They were doing like pop-up businesses, and like they were doing this in like storage containers, or like
Oh, yeah.
that
Yes,
sort of thing.
at the point there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yes.
Union Point. So we have so much potential in our town, especially with High Street Park, if that comes to the full potential that can be. But I know we've talked about the trails. There's so much we've talked about this year, and I think we're gonna have our hands full over the next year. But who knows, we might actually think about a second business summit as well.
All right, I mean,
We'll see, you
yeah,
know what I
fair
mean?
enough. I think-
Just throwing it out there as
No,
as
it
a
doesn't,
possibility.
it doesn't hurt.
You know?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, when we're gonna be required to reorganize at our next meeting, because it will be the first meeting after town elections, which are happening this, weekend. And I think maybe one of the things that we should, keep an eye on is let's set our goals and our intentions, and manifest some of that stuff.
Exactly,
And, see what we can, get going. But I know along those lines, Hanson Day, yeah, you know, we had talked about, ecotourism, and I think Tony will touch on that in his update, because we've made some movement on that to try to attract businesses. I like your idea of the, like a pop-up, like a food, you know, like a food truck rodeo. But, you know, there's a lot of little, like catering businesses and, farm stands who make things. And,
Exactly.
you know, I would love to try to figure out how we could showcase them in
Sure,
town.
That could be a farmer's market.
yeah.
I like the
Yeah,
idea
yeah.
of farmers.
Now, we had explored a farmer's market. We had explored this. I'm not saying it's off the table, but we had explored it. Kim did quite a bit of work on this. And years ago, Hanson used to have a farmer's market. What happened was, sort of echoing my comments earlier about RSVPs and people keeping their commitments, the people that were organizing it found that people would say, yeah, I'll be the next Saturday, and then Saturday was a beautiful day, and they were like, I'm out, I'm not gonna be showing up. And so they just felt like they were babysitting, and it was because it was unpredictable about who was going to be there, it became unpredictable about who was gonna shop there, because you didn't know who you were going to have one week to the next. Now, Pembroke has been doing it at least since that community center. It may have even been before, but it came on my radar last summer. They've been doing it up by their community center. I think it's every Saturday. Seems pretty well attended. They have like music. Of course, we have no budget. Pembroke probably does have a budget there because they've got the community center, but we could do a couple pop-up farmers markets. Like we don't have to dive all the way in. We could just dip our toes in, like
See what the response is.
yeah.
Where would it be located?
I mean, Thomas Mill was where they had it before. We could
Right.
easily have it at Town Hall. The Town Hall Green is pretty convenient.
Yeah.
That's where we had the, these are just my suggestions, but you know, you could have it at Indian Head. You could have it at the
If it's a
McGuire
summertime,
property.
Indian Head would
Yeah,
be, Indian Head's actually one.
You probably want it
You have a
somewhere
parking
where
lot
people are
across
gonna
the
drive
street.
by and go, oh, I didn't have that on my calendar, but I'm gonna pop in for 10
Right.
minutes.
Indian Head might be.
Yeah.
Because we did really well.
We did, yeah.
I think that was a better one than the one we did here.
The flow seemed better.
Yeah. The parking lot right across the street.
Yeah,
I think that's happening this weekend too.
The historical thing,
Historical
yeah.
craft fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's this weekend.
yeah. So, and Jim definitely, you know, they for years had it at the schoolhouse, which is a great location.
Yeah, but it was too big.
But this is, you know, off the hook. He can do a lot more with that
Right.
location. So, okay. So, you know, just a few things for us to think about, but, you know, and then I think, you know, we want to talk about underutilized properties. That's definitely one of our goals. And so, I thought that would be an appropriate transition to our discussion about the potential rehabilitation of the nurses' quarters at Plymouth County Hall. So with us, we have Melissa Johnson, and Melissa, if you want to just lay up, you know, who you are, what your thoughts are, you know, kind of,
Okay, I
yeah.
don't know what exactly to say. So the nurses building, front building, is my dream of opening a wellness center. I don't remember if you were here for my presentation.
I was.
You were, okay. So you've seen my presentation, obviously. I don't think you, Paul's my husband, so he's seen it. So I have a whole plan of what I would like to use the building for. I'm a counselor. I have a business in a private practice, and much rather have it here in Hanson. I want to incorporate the park to that whole wellness. I don't know.
Well, I
I don't
think
have my presentation.
No, that's fine. This isn't, you know, super formal. It's just us. I think Do you mind if I chime in with a few? Okay. So it is the goal of this Economic Development Committee to find ways that we can monetize property that the town owns. Whether it's selling it, great, we've kind of done that with some of the small town-owned lots, but that's a one-time shot in the arm. It doesn't get us a continuous revenue. So as you know, we've got a piece of property over in the industrial park, which, again, I won't steal Mr. Dufresne's thunder. He'll tell us a little bit about what he's doing there. So we've got that piece of property. It's a blank slate, and we're exploring that. Then we've got the light control, which, you know, there is a group of people who believe that highway should have gone there. We, again, Mr. Dufresne found a grant money to do a study at that property. There was contamination that was there, even though light control had told us that they had cleaned it up and they had clear the health. But based on some of the old timers, you know, telling us the stuff they used to see and do down there, like, I doubt that whole property's clean. It just was be impossible. You would have had to, like, take all the dirt from, you know, 5 feet and up. Found that, but that's the bad news. The good news is he also got a grant for us to clean it up. So it will be clean. Now, there are some deed restrictions on the light control that prevent what can be done with it. And it was primarily because they knew historically what had been done with that property. So you can't have a school there, you can't have a garden there, like a senior center, or basically anything like touching the earth, people touching the earth walking around. But we're looking at what can we do. And we've had a couple people say, hey, you know, I'd rent one of those buildings for storage. Right now we're using one of the buildings for cold storage for fire and police and highway so that they can free up, you know, like the highway guys are busting at the seams. And so some of that equipment's been out in the cold. So we've got it sitting down in cold storage down at Light Control. Great use for it. But that's not bringing in revenue. It's just at least using one of the buildings. We've had a couple businesses ask about whether they might be able to lease it. We even had Plymouth County Sheriff say, oh, maybe we would, you know, so we've got a couple different things that people have approached us on. Whatever we do, and this goes for any building or that we have, whatever we do will always be done open. RFP, everybody gets to apply to tell us what they're gonna do. You know, the pricing will be transparent, it will be discussed in a select board meeting, yada, yada. But that's just my way of saying, so those are the two things. Now, the third piece of property that we own that, you know, we really aren't doing enough with, I should say, again, this is underutilized, not necessarily not utilized, is that building that you refer to as the nurses' quarters. Others would say the front of the food. But nurses' quarters is more proper. That is what that was used for. And a very important distinction is those are two buildings. Mm-hmm. The back portion is one building, and then the front portion is another, which is the nurse quarter. And the reason that I say that this is important is because the back portion was not, when they rehabilitated that for the food pantry, it was just a boots on the ground, like all kinds of different groups came, donated their time, donated materials. Amazing thing that we've got a food pantry, which is really the envy of a lot of the South Shore food pantries in terms of size and location and footprint and everything else. But it was not restored to historical standards. It was just, you know, just redone. That means there's certain grants that they're never going to be eligible for and that the town will never be eligible for on the back portion. Boat sale, nothing to do about it, doesn't matter anyway. The front part, which is not yet occupied, is still historically significant. And it is really untainted in a way. There was starting to be some damage on the roof, so years ago we did vote at town meeting to at least like seal that up. Then there was a little bit of window stuff going on. We did some stuff with that. But up until maybe 15 years ago, I think Plymouth County was there. They had the 4-H guys and, were actually in
ECI was in there.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, so the reason I set all of that is one of the things that, we have discussed is that, you would very much like to keep the historic,
Absolutely.
characteristics of that property. Now, community preservation, which is a portion of our taxes every year, a very small portion of it, it does, we've had that since 2008 in town. And they've been super, super judicious about how they use that. And it can only be used for certain things, one of which is historic restoration, open space, and housing is like, forget about it. Things are so expensive you can't even contemplate it. Open space and historic, they've used some money here and there for things. But your project really would be, if you rehabilitate the front of that building, it's definitely eligible for community preservation. And there's money there. And there's potentially other money out there if it's properly designated historic, etc. So knowing all that, you had already taken those preliminary steps, and then I thought you might want to talk about the woman that you contacted and kind of where you're at on that.
Yeah, he dealt with
Yeah.
I'm the one that met her.
Yeah, feel free.
All right, so I met her with Charlie, along with Charlie, did a walkthrough. So
Yeah.
this one is she's out of Plymouth for architect. One of them being the library in Plymouth where her business is. That's the art center. So he's the one that did that. So we did the walkthrough. What she recommended, and I agree with this, and hopefully do a feasibility study.
Mm-hmm.
But not because the exterior of the building, there are some cracks. The building is absorbed. But to do a feasibility study and then be able to include on the CPC lot, also benefit like food pantry in that having this feasibility study right immediately over the buildings. Because to figure out, putting in a handicap ramp, it could be put in, it could be the front, so it could be done and still maintain historic.
Yeah.
But you have to have handicap spaces based on the occupancy of the building, how many spaces, and they have to be so many feet.
Yep.
So she does all that, do it all, and the feasibility study would include that. So I think that's why we want to fill out Form A and see if we can do this feasibility. Because it's something that we'll know then what we're looking at.
And the thing is, regardless of whether it's you that ends up there or not, that it's still owned by the town. Yeah. We're paying utilities on the building. We're paying insurance on the building. Like, we might as well make use of it. And it is a beautiful space. Years ago, when the senior center was sort of running out of room, I had thought, that was the front, because there's a beautiful big room, and there's a lot of little private offices where people could, if they needed to have like private conversations, that they could be there. And I think I don't know if I had talked to Tony or not about that, but I had talked to Mary Collins about it, and she's so gracious. She'd say yes to anything just about, because she's just a nice person. But she was like, oh yeah, but then the more we thought about accessibility, the parking lot, like all the work that needed to be done there, and it wasn't going to bring in revenue, would be good, but it wouldn't bring in revenue. So it would be great, I think, to one way or the other have a plan of how much would it cost to make this building be able to be occupied. Like, even just having something solid to work off of, instead of like in our minds, like, probably isn't that much, or is that much. We could have a plan, and then from somebody that's an expert, I think what we'll find is that it's probably bigger than a bread box in its entirety, but we don't need to do all of that at once. It's not equal priority.
Right.
There's
One of the things that we were discussing when we were in there, and it could, what it can be done in phases. But to do the feasibility study, look at the whole thing, and then she'll have a team in there. She'll have structural and tests for asbestos, the whole thing. So once that feasibility study is done, everything will be, all the questions will be in. You can look at this whole ball of wax and say, this is how much the whole project would cost to do. And then we break it up from there, or
And I think the beauty of it is no need to tap into free cash or anything
Correct.
else, because we're absolutely strapped. It can come from community preservation money, because it is one of the purposes. It still goes before town meeting.
Correct.
So people will still decide whether they think it's a good use of community preservation money or not. And I can't imagine anybody fighting it, but now that I've just said that, I probably called the universe in on it, sorry
Well,
to curse you that way, but.
Well, I don't know either, because, I mean, that's something the CPC will have to
Yeah.
follow, because I don't know, because it's a feasibility study.
They don't have enough in administrative. Technically, it can come out of administrative, but that committee has only done, like, I want to say only 5% of their budget. You're allowed to do up to 10%. And so it's just enough to pay for the recording secretary and maybe occasional, like, printing of
Oh,
things.
yeah, yeah.
They don't have, like, the amount that I think we'd be talking about
Well,
with this.
I know the
Yeah.
figure, but it's
Yeah.
$30,000.
Yeah, they won't have that
So-
amount, yeah.
So it's $30,000, but like I said, what you're up with, and like this woman is actually pretty excited about Bert's name on the door clerk in there.
Yeah.
And she said, I want to research the history of the building.
I'm excited to have somebody who's excited about it, yeah. That's great.
Really, and it's just her, it's her and her, you know, she has like an intern with her that was helping.
But we're not gonna get, you know, like, the shuffle where we have the front person and then we get, well, like, who the hell is this, get some second banana that's doing it.
Exactly, it's
Yeah,
not,
okay.
it's
You get
just
her.
her,
She's
you
on
get
it.
her, she's one,
Yeah.
and she's on it, she's the one that'll, you know.
That's amazing. So did you guys have any questions for these guys?
Yeah, just, I'm trying to figure out the way it would work out. Would the town remain ownership of the building?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah,
And
so,
that it would
yeah.
have to be for the CPC funds, correct?
Well, not really. Like I
Yeah.
was explaining, you know, to Melissa before, technically, I'm not in support of this, but technically the way community preservation is written, the town could vote, like, say you've got a historically,
Yeah.
you know, significant home. We could vote that it's so significant that we want community preservation money
I see.
to fix it up. We'd put a restriction on your
Exactly.
house, and the town would get the money back. But no, really the reason is because we want to retain ownership of that building.
Okay, yeah.
Especially with the fact that the food pantry's got like a 99-year lease, and the beekeepers are there, and like we don't, you know.
I think wasn't that building sold one time, and then to a developer never got developed, or was that the
You're
hospital?
gonna zoom those
That-
bodies?
that-
Yes, this was before my time, but
That
it
was
was
the
sold
hospital.
to Barron Park.
Yes.
And then we ended up with it back, we don't, you know.
We ended up with it back because they backed up a truck and dumped hazardous materials and then wouldn't remove it, and then they reneged on the deal. This was way before my time. But it was a ugly chapter in the town life. And really what had happened was they started doing, they were exploring, they bought it for housing, they were gonna put housing up there, because it really is a beautiful location. But when they started digging, they figured out that the soil there was more clayish, and it would cost them an arm and a leg, and that they were gonna have to do one of those like mini treatment,
Yeah,
which brought the cost of what they were gonna do so high that it ended up becoming not feasible for them to do it. But instead of communicating that, having an open line of communication, they just stopped communicating, reneged on everything, left a bunch of stuff up there that we ended up having to clean up and backed out of it. So that's all I know about
right,
it.
so we want, that's, you know, so this, you know, avoids having another town retaining ownership of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Revenue.
especially where, you know, we're gonna have that park in the back. And it's a beautiful, even if they don't do anything beyond what they've done now, it's a great little walk. Like if you go there, it's pretty cool. You know, it's in my rotation of places that I'll take my dog. And people love it. And the Conservation Commission has done a great job of signage and clearing trails and stuff like that. They really have done an amazing job. And so I don't think we'd want to ever get in a situation where somebody would be like, I don't want any people parking here. I've got what, you know what I mean? Like, it's ours.
The other
you
thing
know?
is that it would also benefit like the Bonnie, because the parking lot will be there, so if, you know, work commissioner will be able to someday open
Yes.
up the Bonnie House for tours. I mean, doing this feasibility study and getting figured out.
Not to mention the lift.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
but That's the other thing too, is people were talking about, oh, they have to put an elevator.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's only one floor, you do a lift instead of an elevator.
That's probably way cheaper.
It's like
$35,000.
$35,000 versus, $150,000.
Mhm.
And it's basically just bolts onto the outside.
So then the building and back benefits.
So one of the things that
Place.
we were talking about is one of the places that could be put is on, the little connector that's between the
Yeah,
two, that
yeah.
connects the two buildings, the
Mhm.
little hallway. Putting it on the back side of that hallway, so it's behind the building, so you don't see it from the front, is between the two buildings. And then putting second floor of that connector, so that 2 floors. So now you have a lift that's accessible to both buildings, so.
Have you guys been in this building?
Many years ago.
Have you been?
No,
I've been in the,
I'm just wondering,
Outside, I'd love to get
I was
eyes
wondering
inside,
if
sure.
maybe it might,
Maybe-
and
yeah,
even
tour
I
would
wonder
be
if some of the
great.
community preservation
I have-
people may have not been in the building. I know
I have-
Karen Duclos has, because she volunteers with food.
I have photos.
But like,
Jack's been in it.
Yeah.
yeah, Jack definitely.
Yeah, Jack's
Um,
been in it, and,
But maybe like Diane and like Mike Jones and Adam, I don't know if Adam Belkovic, I don't know if they've been in there.
What's
Um,
the condition inside, is it?
It's not bad.
It's not bad.
I have photos.
Yeah.
It's not,
It's
like,
not-
it's totally walkable. It's not-
The second
Yeah.
floor is, like, because of the roof leaks and stuff, there's
There's
like
two.
plaster and stuff that's falling in the
can we
second.
take a minute and look at the photos?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Hang on. a
But
second.
maybe
Maybe
Paul,
it
if
would-
people want to reach out, we could, like organize a little walkthrough
Or
or,
open house or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I don't think we're allowed to go upstairs.
no, because it's a liability, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
we
basically,
did,
it looks the same upstairs.
So-
as it is
Yeah.
downstairs.
So you have access to it right now?
Well,
we'd have to meet with Charlie. We'd have to
Yeah.
meet
Yeah, Charlie's got the
Charlie.
keys.
Whoever has.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie's got the keys. And then we did walk upstairs with
so this is
the architect.
upstairs.
That's probably one of the worst ones.
That's
Yeah.
the worst.
Yeah, that's the
I was
worst
gonna
one.
say, that's not the best one to start
Yeah,
with, but,
yeah.
So like that whole portico in the front, the whole thing needs to come off the building.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the right of it, that's one of the moisture is getting in the stucco. And as far as the stucco goes, one of the things she was talking about, literally fix the stucco and then they put a sealant on it. And that sealant is good for a long time, so.
like, that doesn't look bad at all.
no,
When are these photos?
That's upstairs.
These photos are 2 years ago because I've been applying for grants for this site for
But
the
it
last
looks
2 years.
exactly, this is.
Do we know what the
This
square
is down.
footage is?
This one's
Yeah,
downstairs.
Melissa, do you know what the square footage is?
Oh, we just,
Roughly, like,
just
Yeah, right.
I don't.
have written down at home today.
I could probably get you that.
what were you gonna say?
I said I could probably chase that because I've been chasing grants for this place for 3 years.
In my mind, I'm thinking like 4,000 to 5,000. I'm spatially challenged, so that may not.
I measured the building, I just walked outside, I measured it, and,
This is the big room that's my room for like the general public. They
Yeah.
want, like you were saying, it's the, services
Yeah.
want to come out, the VA wants to come in.
That's got
meeting.
great sunlight,
That's-
great, yeah,
Like a great open area for
It is.
meetings like that.
Is that the front of the building? Is
yes.
that, yeah,
Yep.
okay, yeah. So the heating and the air conditioning, or is there air conditioning in it? It's
So-
just-
No, it all has to be redone.
so that's what part of this whole fee is. So part of the thing is, you were talking about meeting or
Yeah.
mini splits, but you can't put a mini split on a wall sticking through an historic building. So you'd have to do heat pump and then ducting, but you could use, this is what she would do in the answer.
Oh, you could do, I mean, they've come so far with, but you could,
Yeah.
literally, all you'd have would be a little hole.
Yeah.
You wouldn't mar any
Even
of
if
the
it was a vent,
historical.
that
Yeah.
vent is, matching 1930s or
Right.
Yep.
whatever.
Just
So
like
it's
my
historical.
floor is, like in the presentation,
That's-
I did the stairway and the floor.
That's the electrical.
Was it 100 amp service?
No, they actually just split that off. So it's split.
Yeah, that just got upgraded, because it was part of the, ARPA money that went to the building to try to bring it up.
So it's split, and it's ready to go for, them to just throw a panel in for inside the building, so.
Yeah, so, I mean, as compared to like, say, 5 years ago, a lot of little things have been done to the building that are moving it forward, but there remains a lot to
They
be
still
done.
have to put the fire escape back on.
I honestly think this could be an
Well, this-
incredibly beautiful building if it
This-
was brought
this was
back.
the
It could be, because the way, I don't know exactly how things worked out, the way we hoped it would be a community, or, you know, the town, private business. I mean, we put our money, you know, just together.
I think you could get Eagle Scout projects and stuff like that to work on that. Charlie came up the other day and showed us that he's about to do some plantings around the building.
That view right there, this is what I was talking about. So right, there's that little connector.
Yes,
That's
yep,
just a connector between the two,
Yep.
two separate buildings. So putting the lift could be like bolted, literally, put a second floor on that connector and picture bolting a lift right, maybe in the middle where that window is. But that would be a lift, so it has access building, so you could get access.
is it weatherized? Like, I'm just picturing
Yeah,
some
it's
poor little
just-
person in a lift on the side of a
Yeah,
building.
oh yeah, it's
trying to
completely
get up.
weatherized. It's-
Okay,
It's just,
yeah, all right.
It's not like a chair lift, it's like an elevator.
Okay.
It's just hydraulic lift structure and literally just.
That sounds like a good cost effective. Did anybody have any other questions? I think maybe if we can arrange, you know, like the time for people to, I'm a visual, like I need to be like, okay, yeah, that's what it looks like, you know?
So, I
I'm
mean,
happy to go over there anytime, because I love it.
But, I mean, do you guys philosophically support, as a, you know, committee, us,
I
like,
do, yeah.
regardless of what is in there, but us at least doing the feasibility study, figuring out how much it would
Yep.
cost, using community preservation funds to do that, is that something you guys are okay with?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Yeah, you have-
Would they also explore the outdoor area that you're looking to use as well? You were looking for some outdoor area as well,
Well,
correct?
Well, I mean, you naturally incorporate the trails, and in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
business, outdoors is, you know,
Oh, yeah.
walks out in nature, and, you know, I mean, you can do counseling
Yeah.
walking down a trail. I spoke to, I can't remember her name, the parks.
Mary Ann?
Parks and-
I'm not sure. I remember I spoke at the Hanson Day, the first, and they were thrilled about the whole idea. And then I do have, well, there's an interesting component, these I did, but I have a colleague who would be a potential renter. I have a lot of people who want to rent spaces, not just counselors. And a colleague of mine, she has an idea just outside, a little playground almost area, but it's a therapeutic. Because it's owned by town, it has to have the community to use it as well. Like, combine, a lot of everything is just combined between private and the community.
Oh, it did, but there's some things in the future that you're probably gonna propose or
I think the
or
first step
it's
is
gonna
to
grow,
yeah,
right?
get the feasibility study.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, are we looking at something that's like, you know,
Yeah.
crazy money and, you know, because even if it is eligible for community preservation, you know, is that how you want it? But depending upon what it comes up, if it's something modest, you know, and then again, it can be phases. Like when I get overwhelmed with stuff, a project, I try to just break it down into like sub-components and I think what absolutely has to be done first, then what has to be done next.
Right.
And usually that's much more manageable financially, mentally, every other way.
I think it's possible, and with the feasibility study, we can look at the whole thing and then just determine, I mean, the exterior of the building and the parking lot.
Mhm. Yep.
access. And then first,
Mhm.
and then once the first floor is done, you can be occupied, you can get in there, occupied, start bringing some revenue. And then phase two could be second floor lift and.
And I think the thing is, at that point, you will have demonstrated, look, the town can make money from this.
Right.
It's money well spent. So are you willing, citizens of Hanson, to spend more money on that second floor?
Right.
So I think, you know, some success will build success, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And plus, again, it's gonna be open to veterans can be able to use it, senior centers,
Mhm.
you know, they can, got a lot of potential, but it all starts with this feasibility study, because right now, we look at this monster sitting there and we don't know what it means.
Yeah.
And we can't assume, so feasibility study will at least lay that all out, and then we can decide and say, well, you know, great, this will work, we can do this in one phase, or we may look at it and say, oh, this is gonna have to be, but we don't know until
No,
that feasibility.
that feasibility study is key to sizing it up, so yeah.
So I think one of the things that, you know, we're recommendation or something from this board.
Did you have a question?
Oh, no, it was,
So we bring it to
yeah,
the
it did
CDC.
actually.
We're gonna meet with the historical too.
So would this have to go on the ballot for the town meeting?
It wouldn't go on ballot, it would be on the town
On
meeting
the town
warrant.
meeting floor, okay.
Yeah, and,
Could, would we be on target for October 10?
It's totally possible that we would be. You've already presented to community preservation.
I did, I gave them a
Yeah.
heads up, you know.
And so their time, so it's really gonna be contingent on what community preservation does, but, I think they, as long as you, I wanna say, so for October, we back into the town meeting warrant, and most of the articles are due by August.
I'd like to fill out Form A and bring it to them for the next hearing.
That, I was gonna say, although it sounds like, oh, October town meeting is so far away, it is not.
Right.
As far as like the timing of everything. So, I mean, I am in favor of this. I think it's a great idea, and I don't think we've got anything to lose. It's not coming out of free cash. It's coming out of money that can't be used for anything else except for historic, or historical purposes. And, you know.
I don't know if after that, once we get the feasibility study too, if that'll help you out with grants and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly what we're looking at. You know.
I've already had someone look at the building and give me an idea of costs when I was looking for $1 million grant. So they came up with a general cost based on photographs, what it potentially, but we had to work up to that $1 million. So they might be a little high, but still, you know, we took a look.
Yeah, but I mean, to your point, like if we have a feasibility study and we've got a professional who's mapped out soup to nuts what needs to be done, maybe we would be eligible for some historic restoration besides community preservation, you know.
And one stop, we can get under one stop. I mean, that would be that would help, because that would be part of the application, you know. So if you did a feasibility study and it says, okay, for $500,000, this building can be turned into something,
Yeah,
then we would admit that as part of the one-stop grant.
we're just in a precarious position.
I
So
know.
it doesn't mean all grants are off the table, but most of the low-hanging fruit and the ones that we've been most successful getting have been tied into what now they're making us be an MBT. So since we aren't, and we're not planning on it, and unless we get sued and we're somehow forced, then technically, July 1st, we're no longer
14.
compliant. There's like an interim squishy period, which we're in right now.
July 14th.
Yeah, July 4th. I keep saying July 1st.
The other
Remind
thing
me
is,
it's the 14th.
the other thing is the parking has already been incorporated around this building as part of the park. And so it's been worked in with the food pantry folks and stuff like that. So there is already a design for parking around that.
Around the entire building?
Yeah.
So then the only thing we'd have to worry about then is handicap.
I was gonna say, I
Yeah,
doubt they've
yeah,
factored
right.
that in,
They-
because,
They have factored some.
yeah, but since they didn't know what the capacity was gonna be of the occupancy.
Well, it's handicap spaces in ADA are based on the number of spaces, not the number of people. So for like, if you have 25 spaces, you need one,
Okay,
and then it starts to go up from there.
So is that something that we can give, I can get to her, or?
Oh yeah, it's public record.
Right.
I have the plans and stuff like that. for the
Right, so
park.
then that's one less thing she kind of has to do, or she
Oh, yeah.
might be able to look at and say, all right, we're just gonna need this or tweak that, or.
Yeah.
Well, that's
or-
the, see, then that's going to get into a whole big thing now, because now you're dealing with the park committee, the High Street Park Committee, and now you're changing, if she needs changes to the plan, now we get into that whole, two committees wind up colliding.
maybe the way we want to
Yeah.
approach it is to say, another committee has already planned the parking. Could we keep this parking, or is this something critical?
Yeah.
I think the only critical thing.
I mean, there would have to be there could be adjustment. It just comes down to, okay, if all of a sudden the consultant said, well, I need this, and now the park's like, well, we've already spent all this money on this parking design, now you want to change it, you know? And so I'm just saying, it could probably be adjustments,
Yeah.
you know?
I think the only thing the only concern that she had when we were talking about parking, where to put the ramp, because whatever plate entrance the ramp is, it has to be the main entrance. Because you can't like redo the boardwalk, call out the main entrance and turn around and put it. Because you have everybody equally going in that building. So, whatever ends up,
Okay,
and then her only concern was, and then handicap spaces have distance from where the ramp. So that's the only thing, and that's easy because I mean you already have a parking design and if the ramp's here, then signs on those parking spaces that are closest
Do
to
you
Yeah,
know
I
where they plan, they probably did the parking as though the front building wasn't fully occupied, right?
Well, if they did, then she could complete it.
You know what, I think, I think Joe Weeks is still the chair of that. I'll talk to him about it. And if you could just share that information with these guys,
I think, she'll work with whatever she
And
does.
there's additional parking on that side street? Is that the same trail or is that a different trail?
so, yeah, there's parking for the trail, like, off of Pierce.
Yes,
what you're talking
yes,
about? Yeah.
yeah.
They're talking about parking right around
Just
the
in the
building.
front of the
Yeah,
building,
yeah,
yeah.
well, yeah, it's right on that side there, and even now, it's like,
There really isn't a parking lot now. You've got that grass
No.
area that's kind of in the middle.
tell me about it, I think I'm gonna break a leg every time I'm in that
Right.
parking lot. Yeah.
Whenever I go to the meeting, one of the meetings,
Yeah.
or like, everybody just parked wherever, there's no designation. And then you got, the community garden down, like you said, if there's already a parking plan, that's great. So, it's-
That's it right there. So they could make adjustments. to
Right, so they were
this.
talking about the ADA ramp, so they have that on the side, right?
Yeah,
No,
this is the ADA for the ramp for the
Okay.
food pantry.
That's
So
already there.
Oh, see,
So
that-
they would have,
that's totally gonna be workable, because like if they end up putting
you could designate like these two, if
those
you do
two
something
there,
like there,
or
or
those in
something
the
like here.
front, which is ultimately, I think, the best thing would be, and she did too, is to put work. And that way, like, those two spaces direct on the building could be handicap spaces. I think that will take that whole thing right out.
Yeah, because these could be restriped in a manner that would
Exactly,
make it work.
yep.
Okay, well, good, I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought
Yeah,
that up.
no, that's awesome. So if I can get a copy of that,
Oh, yeah.
you can email it to me?
Absolutely.
And then I'll just shoot it to her, and then she can, once we feel kind of just on standby, right?
And I'm still, getting to the town planner update, I'm still going after some money for that building.
All right, so let's, did you say you would entertain, I'm entertaining a motion.
I'll entertain a motion to,
You're making a motion, I'm
I'll
making.
yes.
Yeah.
I'll, I'll make a motion to support,
Write a letter of support.
write a letter of support for the
228
going
High
after
Street.
I'm just trying to make it the right way.
No, I'd like you for the nurses' quarters to
potential
apply to
update.
CPC
Yes.
for money for the feasibility.
Yeah, so
Known as,
Did you get that all done?
known as 228 High Street.
known as 228 High Street.
Okay.
So moved for.
All right.
Did we get all that?
And do I have a second?
Specify that, right?
You have to
I have
recuse,
to
you're
recuse,
recusing
I'm
yourself.
recusing
Scott,
myself.
did you want to second that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, great, so that's 3-0-1. Okay, great. All right, well, thanks, we'll get you that letter of support, and looking forward to it. It's gonna be a marathon to get there. We're not even on Heartbreak Hill yet.
You got to put on the gas.
That's good, that's all that matters. Because I'm running out of analogies, so that's all I could do. So that brings us to town planner update. What say you, Mr. Phrase?
So, sort of piggybacking onto that conversation is, we're still compliant, so I'm going to go after some one-stop grants, and that building is still one of them. I'm going to pursue this time a lower number, but go after something for, say, the exterior. So I proposed 8 grants. There was 2 of them that they kicked back. But to give you an idea, one is the 228 High Street. Another one is looking at a study for municipal sewer in Hanson. Another one is for High Street pedestrian improvements, aka sidewalks, let's say from Main Street to the High Street Park location. I tried a wayfinding one that doesn't fit in, so that's more like probably CPC. I'll go to CPC to try and chase some wayfinding. Hawks Ave being the buildings themselves. Hawks Ave again for land acquisition. There's that 40-foot strip that is owned by Hubble that's in front of what would be our piece, and I'd like to see the town get that, so that way we could extend Hawks Ave and improve it, and that would give a better opportunity or to get something out of the
You don't have that
entire site.
visually, so people can see what you're talking, because I know what you're talking about, but I,
You know what? Give me 1 second. I do have a visual.
so we were given the Hubble property, and then AKA light control, and then at town meeting, I think it was last year, we purchased a strip of property. Mass Wildlife Fisheries bought one piece of property that Hubble had left behind. It was kind of like, it's like a, I don't know, next to the buildings. And it's quite lovely. I was walking there frequently until I saw some people that were living there, and then my house freaked out and said he didn't think it was safe there. So we purchased a little strip there, and then Mass Wildlife Fisheries bought a strip, but there remained this little piece right near this. It's not far from our tower there.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So the outline in blue is what was donated to the town, which is 9.5 acres. Hawks Ave ends right here. So everything in green is the current Hawks Ave layout. So the strip that I'm talking about is 0.36 acres of access that would go to what goes to Hubble's piece. So what I'm proposing is that the town should look at purchasing this highlighted area in yellow, which would then allow us to extend Hawks Ave to the end. You put a cul-de-sac here or put a cul-de-sac here, and then you could turn this 9.5 acres into, with some kind of internal driveway system as a business park or something, because it is in the commercial industrial zone.
Without that strip, there's really no frontage.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Without that strip, these buildings wind up becoming a hindrance, and I'm sure that it was done that way on purpose when the plan was done. So
Who owns the property currently?
right now that yellow is Hubble, because it goes all to their piece, which totals about 87 acres. So we have had an appraisal done for this piece. And so this is actually part of the plan that I submitted today to Lisa with comments regarding the appraisals. I think they're valuing it, if you take a look at their different numbers, they're valuing it about $40,000.
It seems pretty reasonable. Is it a possibility to get an easement from them?
I don't, my concern here is that if Hubble enters into an agreement with the Commonwealth of Mass, they will not relinquish any of that to anyone,
That's true.
especially us.
Yeah.
So I think if we can get ahead of it and we get control of it, we can give Hubble, they'll still have 40 feet of frontage on the extension as they do now. So instead of having that strip,
Yeah.
they would just have a 40-foot. Either if you had the cul-de-sac at the very end, it'd be a dot on that end. If it was at the beginning, there would be a 40-foot easement for them to get through, or a 40-foot strip. I like the one here at the end because you can just give them 40 feet of frontage. They still have access to their property. If the Commonwealth gets it, they still have access to the property. It doesn't get landlocked.
Yeah.
And yet it just opens up that frontage for us to improve the road, and either you could come in off with another road and create some lots, or you could just use the cul-de-sac and create, like, again, a driveway if you created a business park or something to that effect. I mean, there is a big septic system out there right now that was relatively new, and it's been cut off from the buildings. That was part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Then we could do something with that site.
Didn't they fill that septic? I thought they.
No, there's leaching fields there.
Okay.
It's just been abandoned. Now what they did is they took out, there was a septic tank and a pump chamber. They removed those, which is
Okay.
unfortunate because, they were almost literally brand new when they did that.
So
So
who gave us that land originally?
Light control. Yeah. Which light control got purchased by Hubble. So
So is Hubble wanted? Is anybody?
Hubble right now is on lot 2, Hubble owns that, and they're doing some exploration. I think they own a piece here too. They're doing some exploration right now that there may be a tank that was left over from something. And so I think they're doing all that investigation because they're probably in a negotiation with someone to sell it. And so whoever the buyer is, which I can only speculate that it's the Commonwealth, is saying, before we buy it, you need to give us the clean bill of health on it before we purchase it, because we don't want to have to go in and clean it up. So I think they're doing all that as preemptive. Though I'd like to see us get a hold of it, because I think it would be asset to that site for Hanson.
That's a beautiful piece of property, it really is.
Yeah. So again, I'm chasing. I'm going to go after some grants, see what happens. Just a couple other things I was going to add was, so as you're aware, we have Economic Development Committee has its own email address. So moving forward, the committee members will be receiving their information from that address.
Okay.
So if you receive email from edc@hanson-ma.gov, that's me sending it to you. It's not spam. Another thing I wanted to bring up to the committee was the planning board receives all the copies of all the zoning board applications, and we do a review. I do a review of the site plans a lot, and we review it at planning board. What I'd like to do with the EDC is any of the applications that are related to businesses, I'd like to at least bring you in and let you know, hey, this person has applied for, or this person received approval for, if it's especially related to businesses.
I think that would be great.
Because that way you can see what the business growth is, and the fact that some of the stuff we need to really, I know I brought it up before, but I think Hanson needs to look at expanding its business zones, because of the fact that we're getting a lot of interest. Small businesses are interested in coming to Hanson. They have nowhere to go. What's happening is they're going to residential areas, and then they're going to the zoning board of appeals, and they're asking for a home occupation. But you're getting some businesses, for instance, a landscaper. That's not really a home occupation, because now they want to put on their own site.
ZBA approving them?
They have been granted, some of them have been granted, but now you have situations where, like, if it's a landscaping business, trailers,
I would
maybe an
be
excavator,
thrilled with that, yeah.
you know, they store material, and now that's really not what the home occupation bylaw is supposed to be. So amongst the land use board or offices, we're talking about maybe we need to revisit our bylaw to address that, because that's really not what it's for. So because of that, you know, if we have this interest in these small businesses, we need to find a place for them to go, you know.
So how do we, because we have kicked that one around a little bit, how do we move that forward? How do we, like, in particular, we had talked about that strip along Liberty where there's some lots that, remember we had that realtor come in and talk to us about it?
Yeah, they're in a dual zone, and it's an issue.
Yeah, so how do we?
So, I mean, the zoning board, the planning board, the select board, those are entities that can propose zoning amendments, changes to the map. So that's something that would have to be done. So for instance, if there was an appetite to change or expand some of these zones, and let's say it was the planning board as an example, they would make those proposals like any other zoning amendment, submit it to the select board and say, take for your consideration. And then if the select board said, okay, we'll consider it, give it back to the planning board, hold the public hearings, and then give us a report. And then move it to town meeting, and then change the map, change the bylaw.
If I call the chair of planning and talk to him about that, is that something that you think we could effectuate relatively soon, or how long would it take, do you think?
Well, it takes a little bit of planning for sure, because we have to figure out, okay, you know, if we look at the map, where are we thinking? And I just look at the map and go, look, if we took some of these business zones and just expanded them out 500 feet, you know, I think that would help. If we look at some of these areas where the business zone is slicing a good-sized lot into two, and now it's because it's a business and residential, and now that person can't really fully do anything with either, you know, it's a hindrance, you know, so there's some need for examination.
All right, I'll speak to Ms. Campbell, who's the current chair, but who knows what will happen after reorganization.
So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to bring up to the committee's attention.
Okay, that sounds great. Future items to be placed on the agenda. Well, we need to talk about Hanson Day. What else? Anything else that anybody have burning desire to? I will say, Scott, one of the things that you had said that you were interested in was getting Camp Wani more utilized. And I would like to see the Economic Development Committee take a role in that. One of the things that we've talked about historically, the select board had talked about historically, was like, how could we attract people so that there were more day conferences there? Because like we think of it as like mostly like weddings and that type of thing, but a lot of companies do off-site, retreats and stuff like that.
Monday through Friday business
during the day, and so I'd like to see what we could do about that. Do you guys agree? Or
Agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's a big moneymaker, and we need to go. I'm going to use the term globally. We need to make Camp Kiwani viral, because that's the only way it's not going to be in a depth. And I think that's a big one, And I know it's one of those taboo subjects of saying maybe Camp Kiwani needs to have a management company and a contract, but a contract that's set up so that it favors the town of Hanson, not the management company, so that they could take it, improve it, market it, and get it out there.
We had that idea did get brought up several years ago. It went over like a lead balloon, but and it wasn't on my watch. But
and I understand that, because you figure it's your gem. You don't want someone to take control over it and ruin it.
But I think you could have rules of engagement in the contract that would make it still feel like it was ours, even though somebody else is managing it. Like there could be a proviso, like, you will still allow twice a month nonprofits to have, like Boy Scouts and stuff, to have their meetings up there. You will allow the town to have events 6 times a year there at no cost. Like, I'm making this stuff up, but like those types of things. And then, so we still have it for when we want it, but then we get the money from somebody else managing it.
Yeah. I think it's, like I said, it's a taboo subject, but I think it's something, if we look at Camp Kiwani right now, they're in a deficit. And what is it, $79,000?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of money, and the town wasn't keen on subsidizing it. So
for a while they were operating in the
black.
Black, right?
Yeah, and now they're in the red. So I mean, Dory is a one-person show. I mean, she can only do so much. And of course, you have the Camp Kiwani committee, but if that committee is not active because
they're not really active. They don't have a full,
because they don't have enough members, and you can't find, and we know there's a struggle to find volunteers.
Yeah.
It might be worth just taking a look at it and seeing someone, town council, whatever, how could we craft something so that we're in the driver's seat, but yet someone else is taking the reins to get this out there, to make the money.
So, but that someone that would be getting them to make more money, paying for their fees, what they take in, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm brainstorming, I'm not a contract writer, but I just look at it as like, you'd have to have it, and obviously this is where you get the legal people involved is, some kind of contract that's going to be to your benefit. The people that like you're saying, that run it, they're going to get paid by the revenue they do. So it's going to motivate them to get revenue. But we're not going to lose control of it, so that,
There's other smaller steps that you can look at before you outsource it with the name of the game is to bring more customers into the place.
Yeah.
And I'm familiar, that's kind of my expertise, but there's companies like, there's a lot of them, Wedding Wire, that they actually, you get results to get people there, but there has to be a budget, that they're like anywhere from $400 a month to as much as you want to spend on ad revenue. Just kind of a related topic, but not exactly the same thing. I never spent advertising for my business. I just kind of had web pages and word of mouth and whatnot. But recently I spend about $350 a month on Yelp, and my phone's been ringing off the hook. So it's an investment that you see immediate dividends. I mean, if they could spend $400 a month and get one more $7,000 wedding, it's money well spent. And then the team that's still in place stays in place, and we're not paying you know, a management company to run it.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a small investment with big gains.
Yeah,
but-
I agree with that. It's that, you know, I don't want us to go right to a management company because
Right, but
I think that's what I've been trying to do with the seed is
But
like the
there's a lot of-
ecotourism and like, yeah, let's get it out there beyond the borders of Hanson.
Right.
You know,
Right.
on platforms like that.
Right.
You know, that we could get it out there and try and generate more.
Right.
And then and see, it's like, okay, if we can do this for like a year and we start generating and it starts generating more money, then sure. But if it's like, look, it's not, it just keeps going in the red, in the red, in the red. At some point, you know,
Right, you can't justify spending more money to,
What about our earmark that we had? The one that was sort of nebulous about exactly what it was for.
Oh, the business one?
Yeah.
The one we're not really 100% sure how to spend it because they really never gave any guidance.
Right. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, would we be able to use that? It is for economic development. Would we be able to use it to advertise Camp Kawani,
It's thinking of-
ecotourism?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I'd have to look into it because that's the one thing that we have to do because of being the size of the community and the lack of the funding is we have to really start looking outside the box and think outside the box to get problem solved and, you know, reuse, repurpose, paint, screen doors kind of thing to generate. So yeah, I think that, you know, it's worth looking at. You know?
I mean, we have this money that we not really sure, but I mean, I feel like seek forgiveness and not permission. Like, I think on this, like, nobody really gave us rules of engagement on what it could be spent for. And the more I'm listening to Scott, the more I'm like, you know, he's right. We really don't, like, yeah, we post occasionally on Facebook. I don't really even know how often because Dory, who's up there, is excellent, but she's sort of chief cook and bottle wash.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, I don't think she necessarily is thinking to go out and advertise all the time. They've
Right.
had a couple of like showcases up there, wedding showcases.
Yeah, it's like, in essence, like I said, we need to go viral with it, and you know, and if we can do it on our own, even better. You know.
well, I can look into at least some of the different options
Yeah.
for what companies are. And the way that the woman sold me on the phone, she says, listen, if at the end of the month, if you tell me it wasn't worth, you didn't make that money, then I won't charge anything. And it's kind of a trick because they say that, you're like, oh, how can you go wrong? Then you go ahead and spend the money. But for me, it's the first time I've spent money in advertising, and it's effective. I mean, it works. But I'll get some different
That'd be
companies
great.
that do it
Yeah.
and what they cost, and that maybe just throwing an idea out there. What if we could get the same deal and say, we'll do it for free for a month, and if there's a way to track the new business that comes in, then it can be justified saying, look, you know, it's $7,000 for a wedding. That's a nice.
Yeah, and I think that we have to go, like you said, Madam Chair, is go beyond even the weddings if you can get
Right, right.
some type of business summit,
Right, it's
local businesses, or you know, someone wants to hold an event because they're going to have something. The banks,
I'm thinking like
the banks, or
advertise to
you
the
know,
Metro Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah.
South Shore Chamber.
Chamber.
Hey, you guys thinking about having a Christmas party, have a luncheon at our
OCPC had
place? Are you
OCPC
thinking
had
about having
something
an
there.
off-site retreat for your employees? Have it at Camp Kawani.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I've done a few events there where people rent the whole property and they have like their team building. I mean, it's a unique,
Yeah.
definitely gem
Yeah.
for the town of Hanson that maybe we could, you know, bring some more money in, and everybody's happy in the process.
I think that would be great. And my understanding, the reason that the 79,000 was like a weird technical thing,
Yeah.
which Eric kind of explained at our last select board meeting. It's an accounting thing where the Department of Revenue, Mass Department of Revenue, said, like, you need to do it this certain way, and but I didn't think that was abundantly clear to everybody at town meeting, so everybody was like, meh, you know, we're not gonna give you the 79,000. But Dory explained it better. They actually have the money.
Right.
It's just, this was an accounting thing. It needed to come from free cash. So anyway, and Eric did explain that there's pretty dire circumstances if we don't do that.
So
So,
Camp Kawani must have a budget, right? So
yes.
just if we can get something like initial jump, maybe that's the puppy dog clause, right? If you great, if you didn't, then free.
Yeah.
Get that kind of deal and get the jump. Add whatever that's going to cost as a line item in the budget, for.
I mean,
And then-
I would just say in this climate with the override looming over our heads and how
Right.
tight already Camp Kawani is, that's why I was saying maybe the grant that we had would be a source of money for them. Because I think if they add, you're gonna have everybody saying, we shouldn't advertise Camp Kawani, it should only be for local, but, we're gonna have, like, yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
But if you can use some of that money, then that can be earmarked for others.
Now, I think if we have some success, then we build the case, just like Art said, and you go like, look, we did this with this earmark money and it worked out tremendously. Here was our return on our investment. So now we're building it into the budget for next year.
Correct, I think
Yeah.
once we get it to the point where it's making money,
Yes.
nobody's gonna complain about
Yeah,
that.
yes, yeah.
Hopefully.
One of the last things I want to add is in your packet, you'll see that there's some trail brochures.
Yeah, oh, good. I was hoping you were gonna update us on that. Yep.
So we received a $3,000, it's called a redo grant, and it was through the South Shore Chamber of Commerce. They assisted us. And so I've been working with Dave Mansfield. I've been assisting Dave. He's been the lead with all the photographs and the write-ups. And so what you see in front of you are brochures that we're going to be getting printed out. That's not the final version, but that's the idea. And what'll happen is each trail will have this brochure, but we're also going to have sort of, let's say, at least maybe on the back page of this brochure, list all the other trails with a QR code so people will know that,
Awesome.
hey, we have all these trails that you can go visit. And then we'll put this up on, the town's webpage. We'll get it on the social media, and
Downloadable.
yeah, exactly. I'm going to take all the trail maps once we get them all, and I'm going to create a PDF, so that way you can just go online, download the PDF, and all of them will be there.
We can get you barge pictures. I think we could do better.
Dave has been supplying the photographs because he's had.
Talk smack.
he's
There's
had-
a lot of pictures out there. So
Let's put it this way, if you have some that you can send me, that'd be great.
you're gonna regret saying that to me.
Well, Dave.
Paul knows. He's friends with me on Facebook.
Well, Dave said he's got about 4,000 photographs, and he's been going through them and sending photographs of the different areas. So yeah, and you know what? Even if you do have the pictures, and I can also use them for the open space recreation plan.
All right, I'll send it.
This is, so you guys plan on like putting these brochures at the trailhead, like, so people can take them?
Yep.
Now, I know, because there was some discussion, is this like a one-shot thing, or is it something that, are we gonna continue to replenish, or buy an amount to start with, and then?
Yes. So there'll be a bulk amount, and then we'll be able to go back and get more as we need. Obviously, pay for them, obviously. But we'll be able to go back and get more as we need. And the one thing with the individual maps, that Dave probably explained to you, is it gives us the option or the opportunity that if something changes, you're just changing one brochure, not all of them,
That's awesome.
And then having them downloadable on the website, and I know I'm getting a new IT guy.
We are, yeah.
So the whole website.
Yeah.
And the one last thing is we do have an invoice for $479.60, which was for
Advertisement for the summit.
advertising for the summit.
So, yeah, this, I love the brochure thing because it's totally compatible with our ecotourism stuff. And now we can start pimping it out and putting it on the website and getting, sharing it with different, like groups and.
Yeah, this will be completed before the end of June because funding is for the end of June, has to be spent. So South Shore Chamber of Commerce is going to cut the check for $3,000. The one thing they've asked is myself to go on their, I think it's their, they have like a radio show. It's a 10-minute segment.
Oh.
But when it's done, but I also told them, I said, listen, Dave Mansfield's been the man on this, so he's got to be part of it.
Yes.
And so they said, bring him along, and once we get to that point, we'll schedule something.
WATD?
Yeah. I told them, I said, listen, I need to check with, the town hall and make sure that's okay.
Yeah.
And
100%.
and
They had me on there, if I brought dinner for everybody, they would let me talk for half an hour.
So I
When
told
did you
him,
bring them?
Yeah, all kinds of barbecue.
yeah, so I told him, I said, so listen, Dave's a big part of this, so he has to be on it. And they said, yeah, absolutely, bring him along. So, as you know, Kim, this will be her last meeting. So wish her luck. I'm going to miss her.
Thank you.
So,
It's a bittersweet thing, like, I
yeah.
wish we could keep you, but we know that it's good for you and good for the town for you to go, so.
So the next thing would be when the committee would like to schedule their next meeting, and then if there's nothing more for the order, if you want to adjourn.
All right, so we usually meet once a month. We were meeting on Wednesdays. I don't know
Right.
how we jumped the track on this
I
one.
think it was just
I'm okay
scheduling.
with it, but I just was like, it threw me off whack, and I
Yeah.
think I actually may have misled Mr. Sarah, because I think I told him we were meeting last night instead of tonight.
Yeah,
Here at 5:30, but then I had
All
to
right.
be here at 6:30.
All right.
Yeah, I think it might have been there was scheduling.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
I think, yeah, Wednesdays work. Wednesdays work if that still works for the committee.
Okay, cool. So let's
Wednesday.
work it out on what date we're talking about here.
So June, your Wednesday would be the 4th, the 11th, the 18th, or the 25th.
How are people feeling about the 18th?
18th's not so great for me.
It isn't. Okay, what about the 24th?
25th.
25th, sorry. Does that work for everybody?
Works for me.
Okay.
25th works.
All right, let's go for it then. All right, that is lovely. And does this time work? We were meeting at we met a bunch of different times, but honestly, the earlier the better, because
5:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5:30, okay? Does that work for you? Okay. Are you still good with that, Ken?
Yep. I'm good
Okay.
with 5:30, yeah.
All right, well, if we don't have anything else, I'm excited to have you guys, and thank you for your input tonight. It's nice for
Yeah.
Kevin and I
It is,
and Chris not to just be talking to each other, we're kind of getting sick of each other.
I'm excited.
So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
All right, and we even had a guest tonight, look at, well, like,
Wow.
the ballpark, I know,
Wow.
I know.